Something that has come up with a lot of our clients, so a lot of our clients are realizing that you don't need to be at work to do work, and that actually people can be motivated, are enjoying, and can deliver work, or
Yeah.
COVID has proven we can work from home. So there's a lot more of an acceptance of desk sharing. And in fact, there was a question asked, is this the end of hot desking? And his response was, no, it just needs to be done differently. But I think it's really important to understand that hot desking and new ways of working are quite different.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk a bit about that? I mean, I know that we talk about that a lot, but I think you've got a really good explanation of why that is.
Yeah, you're right. So that whole "is this the end of hot desking" is a question that's come up a lot in the last couple of months. I don't think it's the end of hot desking. I think it's really only the beginning of shared working environments, because what we want to do and what we come into the workplace for is going to change significantly in the future. When we talk about hot desking, we're really talking about that property strategy. It's about economizing the space and getting as many desks in there as possible and getting as many people in there as possible at any one point in time. It really doesn't offer that diversity of setting. It doesn't give us anywhere to work other than at our desk all the time. And the behaviors there are still very much driven by presenteeism, that idea that all of your productivity and all of your work has to happen at the desk for it to be considered work. But when we start talking about things like this whole new way of working, we're talking about delivering to outcomes, and what is it that you actually need to deliver in order to be working effectively. And not all of that has to happen at a desk. So we're looking at what all those different settings are, those spaces that we need to access, where we can work with other people, where we can collaborate, where we can focus and support all those different ways of working, so that people are best supported and enabled to deliver outcomes rather than sitting at their desks and just providing inputs.
And I think that's exactly right. And one of the things that's interesting, I think, if you're thinking just data-wise, like how could I look at a plan and tell if it's a hot desking model or if it's an activity-based working model? And there's a couple of key indicators if you look at a plan or any sort of sharing plan that will tell you that. So the first one, like you said, is the amount of what we call alternative seats. So in a hot desking model, the amount of alternative seats is very low, whereas in a new way of working model, the amount of alternative seats is very high. Yep. The other thing I think that's quite different is the number of diverse work points. So when we're sharing, we typically think of a work point as a desk, and in a hot desking model, there's just a sea of desks. But in new ways of working, we have a diversity of work points. So we have lots and lots of different settings that have a dual monitor setup that is easily connectable to. So it might be a physical room, it might be a pod, it might be a desk, it might be a communal bench, it might be a sit to stand, it might be a focus desk. There's a diversity of those actual work points as well as those alternative seats. And so that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is just in terms of density. So it's quite odd. So if you looked at a hot desking plan, it would be, we would call it a high density. So it would be like 10 square meters per desk, or maybe even less, would be sitting about that. But in a new way of working model, if you just looked actually at the desk and calculated just on those typical desks, you would find that it would be 14, 15. And that's because of all the alternative settings. So I think it's really important. I know that's a technical detail, but there is a huge difference between hot desking and new ways of working, which is really why it's important that you go through the process of engaging your organisation on what they need and bringing in strategists that have benchmarking, that know what they're doing around what is new ways of working.